After the fallout from Kwasi Kwarteng's mini-budget last Friday, Liz Truss disappeared entirely. We didn't see or hear from her for nearly a week. Then suddenly, on Thursday, she reappeared, not on one of the big national breakfast shows or Newsnight, but in an hour-long series of 7-minute interviews given to BBC local radio stations. Let's take a listen to Truss on Radio Leeds and Radio Kent.
Since Friday, since your Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng's mini-budget, the pound has dropped to a record low. The IMF has said that you should reevaluate your policies, and the Bank of England has had to spend £65 billion to prop up the markets because of what they describe as a material risk. Where have you been?
Well, I think we've got to remember the situation we were facing this winter.
Lots from my listeners this morning. Carrie in Birchington says, what on earth were you thinking? The country was already in a state of recession. Another says, how can we ever trust the Conservatives with our economy again? And Lydia says, are you ashamed of what you've done? Are you?
I think we have to remember what situation this country was facing. We were going into the winter with people expected to face fuel bills of up to £6,000, huge rates of inflation.
And you've made it worse.
But also slowing economic growth.
Over and over and over again, she gave the same stupid answer. Are you embarrassed that you crashed the economy? Well, it was a difficult winter. There was a war in Ukraine. Gas bills were going to be high. Everyone saw what happened. The timings were quite specific. Your Chancellor announced a mini budget which gave huge tax cuts to the rich, and then the pound collapsed, government bonds collapsed, and now interest rates are going to rocket, and banks withdrew all of their mortgages. Not all of their mortgages, but lots of their mortgage offers, right? The timings, you can't say this is about winter. This is not a seasonal thing. You can't say this is about Russia because Putin invaded Ukraine a long time ago. The timings mean this was about the mini budget that you announced on Friday, and the whole country knows it, which is why the whole series of interviews are so embarrassing. And we do have some more for you. So next up was Nottingham.
And this government has taken decisive action. And of course, in that decisive action to lower the tax burden, to get economic growth going, to help people with energy bills, which is the biggest part of the mini budget we announced, is the energy bill support. That is important.
But the choices you've made in this mini budget is going to benefit far greater those who are very, very well off. If you make £1 million, you're going to benefit 55 grand a year from the tax cuts. On 20k, like a teaching assistant or a nurse, £157. A couple of people have said to me here in Nottingham, this is like a reverse Robin Hood.
That simply isn't true.
Which
By
bit
far
of it?
the biggest part of the mini, well,
that the tax cuts are disproportionately benefiting the wealthiest.
Lots of people have pointed out Liz Truss's, let's say, not superb communication skills. But to be fair to her, I don't think even the best communicator, not even Barack Obama, could have pretended a tax cut for the top 1% is anything but a reverse Robin Hood. It didn't get much better in Stoke.
Too often tax policy has just been seen as being about distribution. It's not. It's also about how we grow the size of the pie so that everyone can benefit.
By borrowing more and putting our mortgages up.
We need to borrow more this winter for the energy crisis that we're facing. And I think that was the right thing to do.
We're going to spend more in mortgage fees under what you've done based on the predictions than we would have saved with energy.
I don't think anybody is arguing that we shouldn't have acted on energy.
She had to think for such a long time before coming up with that stupid answer. And of course, you are right, Liz. No one is arguing that you shouldn't have acted on energy. What they're arguing is that you shouldn't have crashed the market with pointless and uncosted tax cuts for the rich. This was Liz versus Radio Tees.
The government has taken decisive action to help families and businesses with their energy bills this winter. And we've also taken decisive action to get the economy growing and get Britain moving. And that is what ultimately will help all of us pay our bills.
But what kind of decisive action, Prime Minister? Because your decisive action so far has knocked 40% off people's pensions. So what decisive action are we talking about here?
We are facing a global economic crisis following Putin's appalling war in Ukraine.
What decisive action are you taking? It seems like your action crashed everyone's pensions. Did I tell you there's a war in Ukraine? Did I tell you there's a war in Ukraine? It's not very persuasive to anyone. Let's end in Bristol.
Because of the war that Vladimir Putin has perpetrated in Ukraine, and countries are under pressure around the world.
This isn't Putin. This isn't just about Putin. I mean, your Chancellor on Friday opened up the stable door and spooked the horses so much you can almost see the economy being dragged behind them.
This is about Putin and the war in Ukraine. That is why we are.
So the Bank of England's intervention yesterday was the fault of Vladimir Putin, was it?
What I was saying is it's very difficult and stormy times in the international markets. And of course, the Bank of England is independent. It takes the action it needs to take. And it is responsible for interest rates and it is responsible for financial stability.
This is essentially trying to now blame the Bank of England, I think, as well as blaming Vladimir Putin. Maurice, I want your take on this. She was doing that for like an hour. There were 7 interviews. They were all as bad as each other. By the end of it, did at any point you develop any sympathy for her?
I enjoy mocking Tories as much as the next person, but there was a bit where it just started to seem cruel. It's like, okay, don't let her do anymore. I mean, she clearly, it seems like she took a week off after the mini budget to have media training and be really ready for these local journalists. And she's just come out and I mean, honestly, I'm shocked at how bad she is. I know people talk about the way that she sort of pauses and all that, and then people try to make excuses saying, oh, well, that's just her style. And maybe she's going to actually be delivering. And didn't we want to get away from all that over charisma with sort of Boris Johnson? I rarely feel sorry for a Tory, but I was listening to those going, look, just phone in sick. Just say you've come down with COVID. You can't talk. You can't go in on any radio stations because you're not doing any good. And it's damn insulting as someone that sort of, knows lots of local journalists and whatever. It's damn insulting for her and her team to think that she could just sort of roll on and sort of open her mouth and pour out a load of nonsense about, saying decisive action. That's the equivalent of actually doing something. So saying that over and again. What an insult that she thought that she could just roll out and say that stuff. Yeah, I despair. And as much as I would normally enjoy it, there are bits where I think this is too cringy now. You need to switch this off. And let's not forget, this is having an impact on actual people. This is going to have an impact on actual people's lives. So as much as, we can all laugh at a failing Tory, it's our people. It's working class people that are going to sort of bear the brunt of this as ever. It's, she's already talking about cutting benefits.
I think that is why people are so angry about this. Like it's a little bit similar to, I think, the Dominic Cummings going to Barnard Castle moment, because you've got a politician who's going on television and saying something which everyone can see is nonsense, right? And everyone's going through a very difficult period in their life. So back then it was lockdown. Now it's the fact that the cost of living is incredibly difficult. And if you are someone with a mortgage, then you're scared that that's going to go up from 4% to 10% or whatever. I'm sort of picking these numbers out of the air, but you're worried that your monthly mortgage payments are going to massively go up. And then you turn on the radio and you've just got this politician just openly gaslighting you. It's so obviously untruthful what Truss is saying there. She's saying this is because of Russia. This is because of the winter. We can all see that the mini budget happened on Friday. Everything crashed on Friday, right? How stupid must you think people are to not see that? And that's why I think people take such offense. It's because she is talking to us as if we are stupid. The only reason you could think that you would get away with the argument that Liz Truss is making is if you thought everyone in Britain was stupid.